All right, so what we're looking at today, like I said, we're going to be wrapping up chapter 20 today, looking at approaching potential customers for sales, right? So there's a couple different parts of this. There's obviously the initial introduction, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, how to sort of like, just initially get someone's point of contact. Then we'll talk a little bit about like reaching your desired income today, and how to like determine like if you how much you want to earn and how much you should charge per sessions and things like that. And then we'll get into like sales technique and overcoming objections, like when someone says they don't have enough time, they don't have enough money, things like that. We'll talk about that kind of stuff tomorrow. But today we're going to kind of just dive right into the idea of like potentially approaching someone, right? Because there's sort of two parts to the sales process that a lot of people like struggle with. A lot of people are either going to struggle with the initial approaching part because you feel very timid about like, just like approaching a stranger to ask them, to potentially ask them for money. That can be a very awkward experience for some people. Other people have a really hard time dealing with like the pushback, even if the sales session has been set up, and some people are going to struggle with both. So we're kind of breaking it down into 2 days here, and we're looking at the approach today, and then we'll look at the close. We're looking at opening today and closing tomorrow, basically. Looking at this, right? When you've got your first encounter with like a customer, right? What you need to do is obviously you're gonna like do all the normal like introductory stuff, right? Introduce yourself by name, let them know that you're there to like help them with their experience, try to get their name as well. People find it disarming when you use their name. So like the more often that you can actually engage with them and say like their name, repeat it back to them and things like that, the more engaging they feel. It's going to be a good way to like build rapport. It's also a really good way for you to like remember someone's name, so it's always kind of helpful to like use it as quickly as possible. Hello, my name is Brad, what's your name? Awesome, pleasure to meet you, Martha. So that's the first step, right? Really just that during that initial approach. Then like I said, you do want to make sure that you let them know that you are there to sort of enhance like their overall experience. Like, well, I'm one of the trainers here at the club. If there's anything that I can do to help, if you have any questions about any of the pieces of equipment, how to perform any exercises, things like that, please like don't hesitate. Let me know. I'm really excited to help you. That's the next thing you want to do, and like try to convey that as much as possible, right? So, in that initial session, like I said, you are trying to sort of like build on that rapport and let them know that you are there for them. But at the same time, like in that initial session, you can kind of see it right here. You really kind of want to resist the temptation to just dive right into like that education process. A lot of trainers, like one of the mistakes that we often see, and we're going to see this here in just a second, is where they'll approach someone and be like, hey, let me show you the right way on how to do that. That's definitely not an approach you want to make. Don't get me wrong, like people are going to do stuff the wrong way, in a way that it's like, hey, that's kind of hurting your rotator cuff, or hey, that's going to cause damage to your knees. But like, you don't really want to approach them with the idea of like, let me show you the right way to do it, right? That's not really what we're looking for. Really, your first interaction is just meant to be professional, pleasant, and as non-threatening as possible, because like the members at the gym, they do know that like obviously personal training is like a sales experience, and I think that like sales have such a negative reputation, especially like here in the US, where there's a lot of stuff that's very commission based and very sales based. I think that like because of that like sort of negative reputation, you see a lot of sort of pushback and a lot of like walls up in between people when they are like considering when they're considering like it being in a sales situation. So in your first session, you really don't want to like give off this idea that you are like a car salesperson, right? You're really just trying to give them the idea that you're there to help them, because that at the end of the day, that's really what it is, right? And that's what sales are too. Like, remember, like you have to do sales in order to have sessions, and you can't help anybody unless people have sessions. You have to do sales in order to do that. So once you've sort of like established like a little bit of rapport, right, with your client, then maybe, or with this potential client, maybe the next time that you interact with them, and possibly if they're super into it, possibly during the first interaction, but generally during the second interaction, once you've built a little bit of rapport, you're going to be in a better position to offer some assistance, right? You can have a chance to actually like chat with them, identify what some of their goals might be, maybe set up like a movement assessment or actually run them through one, and even like sit them down and like, this is where you can get into the education part and walk them through like what their goals are and how they translate to, NASM's like OPT model is what they're saying here, but basically how their goals are going to translate to like a practical program that you're going to write. So during that initial session where you might say something that is just really simple, like, hi, I'm here to help you. If you've got any questions, let me know. It's a real pleasure to meet you. And then maybe maybe they do have a question or two, right? And they're like, yeah, where do you guys keep so-and-so? It's like, great, actually, that's right over here. If you have any more questions, hopefully I'll see you again sometime soon. And if you can get their contact info, great, but like generally not in that first one. So then, they're gonna go off and they're gonna do their own thing. The next time you see them, like I said, you've built a little bit of rapport. Hopefully you remember their name. That's always really important. And you can go back up to them and say, hey, how is the gym treating you? Like, how have things been going lately? That's going to kick off a conversation, hopefully. And they'll say, yeah, it's been going really well. And it's like, great. Well, let me tell you, like, why don't you tell me a little about like what it is you're trying to work on? Like, what are your overall goals? And they're like, well, maybe I'm here. My doctor said I got to get help. Okay, great. What does healthy mean? Like, do you have like heart problems or cholesterol problems? I wouldn't actually probably be that, I don't know, I probably wouldn't be that forward. I wouldn't refer to like, I wouldn't go straight to like, do you have health problems? I'd probably say something like if they said the doctor told them they got to get healthy, like, oh, okay, well, what do you mean specifically, like by healthy, right? Is your doctor trying to get you to get in bodybuilding? I'd probably say something funny like that. And then they go, oh, no, it's just like my cholesterol is out of control, or my arthritis is starting to get bad, and so he's trying to get me to like develop a little bit of strength. Okay, great. Well, that's really cool. Like, did he give you any ideas on like what that means, like specifically, like what type of exercise? And they're gonna go, inevitably, what they're gonna say every single time with that one is they're gonna say, no, they just told me to go get a gym membership and start working out. Which, by the way, is about as far as most doctors' advice goes when it comes to exercise. It's like, don't get a gym membership and start working out. And it's like, what does that mean? And then they don't get any more information because that's, doctors don't have trainers. It's not their job. But then like, okay, so then you sort of pivot the conversation. It's like, all right, well, have you ever thought about like, if you're working on like, developing like stability to get some aches and pains to go away, have you ever done anything where like you're trying to do like stabilized training? Like, are you doing exercises where you're standing on one leg? Are you doing things where you're in like maybe a slightly unstable environment? Generally, people are going to go, I don't think so. I haven't really considered it, right? A lot of times those are going to be your answers. And it's like, so you start to correlate, like, and you start to educate with the OPT model. It's like, well, you kind of want to build your foundation on this foundation of like moving the right way, and like, doing things in a slightly unstable environment. If you'd like to know more, and this is where you sort of pivot into the idea of an assessment, if you'd like to know more about like what exercises would be particularly good for someone like you, we do fitness assessments. We can put you through and take a look at like, how you move and like what exercises you need, what exercises you don't need, and things like that. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and talk a little bit about, how to reach your goals. So you can see like this sort of becomes like a very natural conversation. Again, like sales seem kind of awkward. Like a lot of people sort of assume that the sales process is going to be a very awkward process where you're trying to like cram in this idea of getting someone to buy something, right? Like that's what a lot of people like assume like the sales process is, but that's not really an accurate representation. Like I didn't get into personal training to be a good salesperson. I got into personal training so that I could help people feel better, right? That's I think most of our motivations here, right? But I can't do that unless that person like works with me. So that's really what I'm trying to get, at the end of the day. Like, I'm really trying to convince someone, to hire me, because I know that like I'm going to give them a better experience than they're going to get on their own. And like this person's going to be healthier and happier in the end. And that's really what we're approaching here. So that's sort of how we approach like those first two meetings, right? Your first one is really just an introduction, and your second one is like once you've kind of established like just a little bit of rapport, you can sort of dive in a little bit deeper into like what their goals might be, setting up an assessment, and talking about like what exercises might be effective for them. Now, that being said, we do have a couple pitfalls to avoid here, things that you do not want to do when approaching new customers. Generally, all of them, they really all kind of boil down, actually, in my opinion, they all kind of boil down to one thing, which is making people feel judged. And if you can avoid that, you're sitting in a good spot. So things to avoid: avoid challenging your potential clients' beliefs, and avoid coming off as judgmental. So you do want to make sure that like you are not making people feel like they are incompetent. Like a lot of people, they're already a little self-conscious about exercising because they're not experts, right? But they also don't want to be told that they are not experts. I think it's just, human nature a little bit. And so like there are a few like ways that you want to avoid phrasing things when it comes to approaching potential customers. So one of them is like, approaching someone on the very first session, saying something like, may I make a suggestion? Which is really just like a sneaky way of you being like, you're doing that wrong. Let me show you the right, like, that's definitely, I've seen like that tiptoey approach just does not work very well. Avoid the tiptoe. Again, have that confidence of like the reason that you're here. Remember at the end of the, like, remember you're here to like help people get healthier, and that's why we are sort of approaching them, so brazenly. I mean, we want to approach them with confidence, right? So walking over and being like, can I make a suggestion? It's just not a very confident way to do things, and it already kind of puts them on edge. Saying the same thing, like, let me show you the right way how to do that. That's a little bit overconfident. Like going up to someone and be like, hey, you're doing that wrong. Let me show you the right way to do something. Also not really the great approach, just because that's going to make someone feel very judged. And that's going to lead to some negative feelings on the matter. Going up to someone, can I show you a different technique? Let me show you the right way on how to do something. Can I help you with that? I actually don't hate this one very much. Like, can I help you with that can actually be pretty effective if you see someone who is like really struggling. Like if they don't know how to like adjust like a pin, or if they don't know how to like get a machine in the right angle or something like that. That's actually kind of what you're around for, like trainers are mostly there to train their clients, but when you're working the gym floor, you are there to kind of help people, sort of guide them if they don't know how to like operate machinery or anything like that. So can I help you with that? I slightly disagree with this one, but this is one of them that's, like I said, it's in your book. So I'm not a big fan of saying, of avoiding this one, but like, do you need assistance with something? I think that's actually okay. What's your goal for that exercise? That's another one that's like a very roundabout way of be like, what are you trying to achieve there? Again, it's just not, it's almost like not confident enough. And so it just comes off the wrong way. Here's kind of like, this is definitely an analogy. It's not tied directly to what we're talking about here, but you guys ever get those text messages from someone or emails from someone where they're like, hey, and it's got like a million E's and a bunch of Y's, and like, can we try that? Every time I get like an email or a text like that, when someone like draws that out, it's like, it instantly puts me on edge, because what it means is, what I'm like instantly being conveyed when someone like goes, hey, or like their shoulders are all hiked like this, they do that kind of like, that like drawn out thing. What it means is like they know they are going to ask something that they perceive, that they think that I'm not going to like. they're doing something that I'm already going to be irritated by, or they have an opinion on something that I am going to disagree with. So what they're doing is like they're preemptively being like, I know that your feelings are really weak, and so like your opinion's really strong on this, and you're gonna dislike what I have to say. But it's like, oh God, like it's just, it instantly puts, I don't know if you guys are like this, but that attitude puts me on edge instantly. And it's like, well, now, yeah, I am really annoyed. Whereas like if you just came up to me and be like, hey, can you would you mind not leaving, this so-and-so, or would you try doing this way? It tends to clog up the area, or blah, 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 or whatever, whatever your situation is. That's a much better approach, because like it shows that like, obviously like something is different, but you're not like assuming that your feelings are weak or overly, attached to a certain thing. And so I think people are going to experience that when you approach them in the gym. You want to approach them confidently from the manner of like, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to enhance your life and make your life better. I'm an expert in this field and I want to help you. When you approach like someone confidently like that, it just sends a very different message. What's your goal with that actually? Oh gosh, I'm done using that voice, by the way. I'm starting to annoy myself. That's how much I really, really dislike that type of approach. Things you should avoid. Yeah. Questions or approaches, or even just like inflection like that. Now, when you are trying to get a conversation going with someone, and you are trying to like sort of engage this person and get them, you get them to open up to you, you want to do a lot of open-ended questions. And this, by the way, is kind of where, like in your homework today, a lot of the questions are going to be like, which is an example of an open-ended question. So you really do kind of want to know what I mean when I say like open-ended questions, right? But open-ended questions are questions that basically get someone to engage in conversation. They actually get someone, to start talking rather than just shutting the conversation down. So, like for instance, like Charlie, if I asked you, do you like working out?
Yeah. What?
It's a pretty dumb question, right? It doesn't really help either of us out, right? It doesn't really do anything to kind of engage the conversation and move the conversation forward, right?
Right.
But if I said like, hey, what's your favorite thing about working out? Like, what's your favorite like thing to do in the realm of like exercise?
Oh, you want me to answer that? Or you just give
Yeah,
me
go
the.
ahead. Yeah.
Oh. Wait, what was the question again, though?
What's your
Call me.
favorite, like, what's your favorite thing to do in the realm of exercise? Do you like outdoor boot camps? Do you like, heavy lifting? Like, what's your favorite thing in the world of working out?
I just like doing like hit training, outdoors.
Okay, yeah, hit training, love it. That's great. So instantly, like, I mean, like, I didn't necessarily even mean to answer you there, but I almost had to, because it's like, yeah, me too. Like I asked the type of question that you can't answer in one word. First off, like, do you like working out? Yeah. No. Maybe. We already, like, a closed-ended question is a question that can be answered in one or two words. But an open-ended question sort of gets the conversation going. So like, what's your favorite of something? That's a great way to sort of answer, to sort of open things up. Why? Let's say somebody's goal is to, like, they say that they're here to like lose weight. If you ask them a question like, why do you want to lose 20 pounds? That's an open-ended question. They're questions that invite more conversation, right?
Right.
So that's what we're looking for. That is what we're looking for in open-ended questions. We want to try to get this person to engage in as much conversation as possible. Generally, why, if you can get that word anywhere in your sentence, that's a great way to engage someone in conversation. It will automatically invite more discussion. And it can be, this can also be used for evil, by the way, or at least I don't know about evil, but like, not during a sales thing. This is kind of an aside, but like, if someone has like an opinion on something, and you know if you disagree with that opinion, if you want to like, so if you think that they are like, if you disagree with them, you think that they're wrong. One of these things is like, why do you think that? That's like my favorite, like one of my favorite questions actually. Whenever I'm like maybe engaged in like a debate with someone, I'll be like, why do you believe that that's a better way of doing things? And a lot of times people don't have an answer to that. They're like, I just do because I do. And it's like, okay, well, I, believe this thing because of X, Y, and Z. That's usually a better way to kind of educate people on stuff. Not necessarily what we're talking about here, though. I only bring that up because I did it last night. So open-ended questions, right? If you can get the word why in there, why is a huge one. Why is going to open up a lot of conversation because it invites a discussion automatically. So why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Why did you come to the gym today? What brought you to the gym today? That's another one. I didn't even know that was the next one coming. But that's a big one, right? What brought you into the gym? So then it invites discussion because people are going to tell you. It's like, again, well, my doctor told me to come here. My wife started working out here, so now I want to start getting fit. I went through a breakup recently and I'm looking for something to take the energy off. Great. Like all those things are like conversation starters, right? What's important to you in a training regimen is really fun. Like Charlie, that's like almost like a different version of the question I asked you, right? What's important to you in a training regimen? You'd say something like HIIT training and outdoor boot camps and stuff like that. I'd be like, great, that sounds super fun. We have and if I were working in a gym, I'd say we got this whole functional training area back here with AstroTurf to kind of simulate, running around on grass and stuff. So those are open-ended questions. And that's, I would say, like, I would start practicing this in your normal lives as often as possible. So this right here, this sort of concept, I would say is, I mean, everything today is sort of its own like little chunk. Today is very like segmented. So I'd say like all of this is kind of like good little pieces of information, but like just in general for like your lives, I think learning how to ask open-ended questions is a super valuable skill to develop just in general. Yeah, what's up, Irene?
Speaking of conversation starters, Brett, like in a gym setting, do they have, like, say you're new, you just got hired at a gym, are you sort of floating around and approaching people, or do they usually say, hey, I have this client who is interested in getting some, how does that work?
So it's going to be a combination of both and one other thing as well. So it'll be a little bit of, like what's going to happen is you're going to get what are called floor hours. And floor hours are literally time for you to work the floor. So to walk around, rack weights, clean stuff up, and then like approach potential customers, talk to them and get them signed up for training. So that's your floor hours. That's sort of like, it's sort of like the in-person version of cold calling in a way. Where you're just reaching, we've all gotten those dumb telemarketing calls where someone's just like, hey, can I sell you a boat? I was like, I will kill you. Maybe you guys don't take it that far, but I do. So it's sort of like the in-person gym version of that. You are walking around, working the floor, quote unquote. But yes, most of your clients, Irene, are going to come from setups from the sales department. So generally in gyms, and they if you're working in a small facility, this might be a little muddled, but generally in most gym settings, you have the training department, which is selling training memberships, and you have the membership department, which is selling like gym memberships. They're the ones who are like bringing new members into the gym and getting them signed up for their 30 days at a time membership or whatever. They're to work out in the gym. And 99.9% of gyms that are out there all have a free fitness assessment built into their sign up for the membership. So when they sign up for that initial membership, they are also getting access to a free fitness assessment with a trainer. So what has to happen is that that membership team is going to put them in contact with a trainer, so the trainer can call them and be like, hey, you just signed up for a membership here at Crunch. Now let's go ahead and meet and put you through like a fitness assessment so we can get you started on the right path for like what type of exercises to do. Now, if they take that free assessment and you give them a whole bunch of information and they use it to go out and get healthy on their own, awesome. You made a really positive impact in the world, and we're grateful for that. But it is an opportunity for you to be like, that's a lot of education on what you need to do specifically, what's going to help you succeed and how to reach your goals. If you'd like help meeting those goals, if you'd like help doing all of this, that's where you hire me as your trainer. And I'm here to kind of guide you on that path. And we're going to keep changing things up when things get stale. We're going to keep you from plateauing and blah, 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 blah. Right. So those are sort of the two approaches. And there is one other one that will also help you get potential new customers. And this is if you're brand new, what they will definitely start you on. Most gyms will give you like what is called a clear up list, or it'll be called like sometimes it's like they'll call it a cold call list, but that's not a very accurate term. God, there's another term for it. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, what it is like they'll give you this big list of people who have signed up for training, and then maybe they were working with a trainer, and then that trainer just forgot about them. Maybe they went out of town or something. The client went out of town, the trainer went out of town, they never hooked back up when they got back. Or maybe it is like that trainer left the gym and decided to go work elsewhere. But what it is it's a list of people who have memberships and they have training sessions on their account that have not been redeemed. So these are like training sessions that people purchase. Like maybe somebody purchased like a package of 12, and they only used 6 of them, and so they have 6 sessions left on their account. You're going to get this, the computer tracks that, and so this list is going to show up, and they're looking, usually it's like people who have not trained in 30 days, I think is pretty standard. But their training memberships for the most part, their training sessions for the most part don't really expire. They kind of do. Some gyms let them, but most of them last a really, really, really long time because they are, a contract that they basically purchased. So because of that, because it's like they have these like sessions available, they'll give you this big list, and your job is basically just to go work your way down that whole list and call each individual person and be like, hi, I'm new in the gym. I was giving you a call today because I saw that like you have training sessions that you haven't used. It's not going to cost you anything, but you already purchased this thing. We should get you, to burn through those sessions. So you're going to call them and like try to set those appointments up. And that's where you're going to build a lot of your client base. I would say on those, you would get, I'd say a good 25% turnaround when you get to the end of them. If you really crush it, who will be like, you know what? I know I already let this expire one time, but I would love to like sign up for more training sessions and keep going because you're a rock star, It's not a super high, but it's a great way to kind of get your paycheck started. So those are sort of the 3 main scenarios, right? Number 1, working the floor. Number 2, which by the way, when you're getting that, you're going to get probably paid usually just minimum wage. Floor hours are not paid at your training rate. Your training rate is like, when you're mid-session. Very, very, very rarely will a gym pay you more for floor hours. In some gyms, they used to not pay anything for floor hours. It was like commission-based only. So you don't get any, didn't get any pay for being around, but you were incentivized to be around because obviously you would get like a commission bonus. So that's working the floor. Then the sort of number 1 way you're going to get new clients, at least that's in my opinion. I know some people who just love working the floor and they're amazing at it. My number 1 way to get clients was always just like the free assessments that come along with the gym. But then again, I put a lot of emphasis on, good assessing. And then number 3 is like those cold calls, making that expired training sessions list. Any other questions on that? That was a good one. It was a long answer, but
no, it was a great answer. Thank you for the clarity on that. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely, those are sort of the 3 key areas. I will say, when I worked at like Stafford, when I worked at Stafford Hills, they had a pretty interesting approach that was kind of unique compared to other gyms that I've worked in. And the reason for it is because they had techno gym equipment. that equipment we saw in the video, where, you know, it counts your reps for you and tells you how much weight you're supposed to do and things like that. And Techno Gym, you know, they'd sunk a lot of money buying Techno Gym equipment. So they were like determined to really use it. And they used it as a big like advertisement. They were like, our gym has Techno Gym. And most people are like, I don't know what that means. But then the sales department would be like, here's what it means. And people would be like, oh yeah, I guess that is really cool. Because Technogym was kind of complicated and a little hard to use when you're trying to, like, if you want to use it to its fullest, they actually had an extra session that each trainer had to be a part of, which was a group session thing. And this, like I said, this is pretty unique, but I loved it. I think it's one of the smartest things I've seen in a gym. So what would happen is if you were a new member, you would sign up for your membership and you would get your free 1 hour personal training session, but you would also get a free 1 hour tour and a general breakdown of how to use like the gym's facilities, where the locker rooms are and how they work, all of these like little things like that. And it was the training staff that was in charge of doing that. Now, if you're on the training staff, here's the kind of bummer about it. If you are super established and you have 1 million training sessions a month, you had to make time in your schedule. You didn't have to do fitness assessments. You're not required to do fitness assessments actually. Like if your schedule is full, you don't have to like, you know, take, you know, an hour out of your schedule. If you're working literally like 8 straight hours, it's not like you have to cancel one of your appointments to do a fitness assessment. That would be crazy. But you did have to block out a slot on your schedule every week, and it was at the same time every week, in order to do this gym tour. So like me, I was the new guy, so I had 2 of those per week. Let's say it was at 6 p.m. on Mondays and 6 p.m. on Wednesdays, right? So Mondays and Wednesdays, let's say those were my days. I was not allowed to book any training sessions during that time, because what would happen is the sales team would sign up a new member and then they would book them into that group tour on either Monday or Wednesday or whatever time or other time, you know? And so then I get like 3 or 4 people who were new signups, and I'd walk them through the gym, be like, so this is where we keep the, you know, upper body machines, lower body machines. Here's our free weights. If you're doing barbells training, you want to do stuff like this. And it was just a chance for me to kind of get the conversation going in this really nice group setting, which again, like established me to be able to have like I had a reason to have a conversation with all these people. And then at the end, it would then go into, you'd finish the whole tour and I'd show them how to use the Techno Gym stuff. How to program the key and all that. And then you would take them back to the sales area and say, okay, well now that was your tour. Let's get everybody here signed up for a 1 hour assessment. And you would just work each person, be like, all right, you want to do an assessment on Friday at 9, you want to do an assessment, you know, and we would set up like specific times for everybody. And that was great. Because it automatically meant that like there was a real, like I said, a reason to have a conversation with everybody. And then you would sign them up for these fitness assessments, and then that's where you would, you know, take them through it and then, you know, do your sales pitch at the end of that hour. So that is what worked there. And I thought that was a really great approach. So if your gym has something like that, and you find out about that during your interview process, I would latch onto that gym. It makes selling things so much easier. You don't even have to work the floor because it does all the work for you. The floor comes to you. So going back one more time, just remember the big thing here, if you are trying to get a conversation going, always, always, always try to ask as many open-ended questions as possible. So the next thing we're going to look at is sort of the idea of like, well, why, like if we are going to like get someone, if we're trying to sell someone something, and let's say you are awkward about it. I don't know how you guys are feeling so far about like this idea of potential sales. And by the way, not every training job out there is sales, you know, sales oriented or anything like that. A lot of training jobs are not actually. I'd say the majority are, but there's plenty out there that aren't. But let's say like you're feeling a little bit awkward about like this idea of like selling, right? Well, at the end of the day, what you have to remember is like what people are actually purchasing is value. Like Irene, let me ask you just randomly, if you were to sell me, um, a protein shaker, right? Let's say you're trying to get me to purchase a protein shaker, and that protein shaker is 10 cents. Are you gonna feel awkward trying to sell that to me?
No, not at all.
Right? Because you're like 10 cents for a protein shaker. That's a great deal. Doesn't feel weird just trying to sell me on it, right?
Yeah,
So what if that protein shaker was $50? Would it be awkward then?
a bit. I would have and need solid reasons to back up why it's worth that amount.
There you go, right? So you'd be like, it's a little weird to charge $50 for a protein shaker. But then what if that protein shaker comes with a lifetime membership of free protein powder that comes with it? Would it be awkward then? No.
Nope.
Right? Like, because again, it becomes a great deal. So really what like a lot of people struggle with when it comes to sales is that they do not feel that there is enough value built in to whatever it is that they're selling. Because we have seen so many like fictional things, we've seen so many movies. Everybody here has probably seen the movie Matilda. Yeah, Danny DeVito, putting sawdust in cars to keep them from rattling, running them backwards to take the mileage off. We've all seen like, this idea of like bad salespeople, like dirty car salesmen, things like that. Jewelry salespeople. Jewelry is the most rip-off industry in the world, by the way. I'm not going to spend any more time talking about that, but it is the dumbest rip-off thing ever. So like, we all are sort of aware of that, and we don't really want to partake in that and participate, be part of that, negative process. But if you were selling a 10-cent protein shaker, you'd be excited to get rid of it because you'd be like, man, I'm giving out the world's greatest deal here. Well, that is what you sort of have to have this belief that like you as the trainer are, you as a trainer, like you are an excellent product. I mean, you guys are walking out of here with lots of knowledge and lots of education. That's going to pivot way better compared to like a trainer who is just somebody who just, went out and passed their test, right? And as long as you are putting the effort in and caring about your clients, like, again, you're going to be, there's a lot of value built into that session. I think Irene, I think you're the only one who's been through the class. Charlie, I know you haven't. Noel, I don't think you have. But if you remember from our behavior change class, our exercise psychology class, there's one of the things that we talk about, which is when it comes to like this coaching process, you have to have this belief that like your client has the ability to change, and then like you are there to like coach them to that success, right? It's called an unconditional positive regard. You have to have like this firm belief that like your client has the ability to meet their goals. And that's really the key to coaching. And if you have that firm belief that like they have the ability to meet your goals and they're going to be able to do it if you help them, right? As long as you hold on to those two concepts, there's so much value built into your training session. You could charge $200 an hour. You just have to believe and make sure that it is worth $200 an hour. So what that means is all your sales, every sale that has ever been lost throughout time, is just because there isn't enough value built into that sale. And certain people are going to value different things. I tend to find that like, I'm a cheapo. Like I try to avoid spending money as much as possible. I'm cheap. I'm frugal. If I'm trying to be nice to myself, right? So generally, like things have to be worth the price. Other people, it has to be worth like time and effort, like for instance, like, this is like the reverse of sales, but my neighbors approached me and were like, hey, would you mind like training us? And I was like, whew, it would be nice to make a little bit of extra cash every month, but like the amount of time I work 40 hours a week. I already got a couple other clients that like, I'm meeting with and things like that. And so like the time and effort involved, it's like, I could, but it's really, at first I was really hesitant, and then, they kind of twisted my arm and, made it happen. And so now it's just like I'm working more hours every week. And it is nice. The extra income is not bad or anything, but like at first I was really kind of cagey about it because I wasn't sure that it was worth the time and effort. Other people, maybe it's a commitment thing. That's another one that I sometimes struggle with as well. If somebody, approaches me and they're like, hey, we're doing this on Saturday, do you want to do that? My brain is instantly gonna like look at my schedule and be like, do I know? Da, 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 da. And it's like, I do kind of want to do that, but I'd rather give you a maybe. I'd rather say maybe to you right now in case like I wake up and don't feel like going. There's a great John Mulaney joke. It's one of my favorite. Stand-up jokes, and he talks about how like he's like, kids always want to do stuff, and like they get really bummed out if you didn't do stuff. If you ask a kid, it's like, what'd you guys do then? And they're like, we didn't do anything all day. It's like, you ever ask an adult what they did and they say they did nothing? Their faces light up. They're like, what did you do this weekend? They're like, I did nothing. I did nothing. Because like adults are so busy, right? So sometimes like commitment is this big thing that sometimes like people are trying to have a hard time overcoming. So, you need to build in enough value to this idea of personal training that it is going to be worth the blood, sweat, and tears. It's got to be worth the effort. It's got to be worth the time out of their schedule. It's got to be worth the commitment that they're going to stick to. And it's got to be worth, like, obviously, the price, right? Here's an example of someone trying to sell me. This is going to sound really weird, but here's an example of someone trying to sell me to get me to coach them. And I refused. There's a person that I play Ultimate with who is consistently late, constantly, just 100% of the time. Like they're not, at this point, it's not even necessarily like they're late. They just show up whenever they want. It's like, I don't have a stronger definition for the word late. They would be that. They're beyond late at this point. And, I was like talking about it. I was kind of complaining about how like, hey, like it's really frustrating that we don't get to start our games on time when people don't show up on time and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I was kind of complaining about it. And then this person approached me at the end and was like, hey, I just have a really hard time like getting up in the morning because like I stay up really late and, and I don't really know how to like fix that. And it's like, well, here's what I tell my clients. And I gave them a couple little pieces of advice here and there. And they were like, wow, would you be willing to like, sit down for like coffee or lunch or something like that to sort of like, give me some more tips on like how to do this? And this is going to sound harsh, but I was like, no, the amount of like effort and like my time that would go into something like that when like I don't believe that like you're going to apply any of these things because you've never indicated that you're going to, I don't have any reason to want to do this. And it sounds harsh, guys. Like, trust me. Like, I know that like this sounds like harsh, and I was accused of being harsh at the time. But again, like your time as like a trainer becomes valuable. Like you're a working professional. And like this person, don't get me wrong, like I wish this person well, and I was like, look, I'll give you advice when we're here at this game. You want to talk to me like between points, you want to talk to me between games and things like that? Absolutely. I'm already here, I'm engaged. We can have as many conversations as possible. But what I said, and this is where I got like called very, very harsh. I was like, I don't take on clients that I don't believe are going to put in the effort. And that is true. Now, that is because I'm established and have been working for many years and have had a lot of clients. If you're new to the industry, take whatever clients you can get. But like eventually you get to a place, I've had to do that with multiple clients over the course of my career, where it's gotten to a place where it's like, you're showing up late for every single session, and like I can't do my job effectively. I can't exercise for you. Having a trainer does nothing for you if you don't put in the effort. Having a gym membership doesn't do anything. Having a gym membership doesn't burn calories. Using your gym membership burns calories, right? So that's the commitment, it's the commitment side of things. So I was like, there was not enough belief built into like this sort of it's like a reverse sale in this weird example I'm giving you. But there wasn't enough like belief that like there was a strong enough commitment. So I was not sold and I declined. And on the other side of things, it's going to happen. Like when you try to like sell someone on something and they just like, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have this, I don't have that. It's because there isn't enough value built into stuff. So that is sort of what we're talking about when we say creating value. Sometimes fear of failure is a big one, by the way. That one's tough. Sometimes, and you'll recognize it in the way people talk about exercise. I'm gonna have a really hard time kind of explaining this one. It's almost like a gut feeling, but sometimes you'll get people and you're like, ooh, this person severely lacks confidence in their ability to succeed. And so fear of failure can be a huge deterrent to people where they're like, man, exercise is hard and I don't think that I'm gonna put the effort in. I want to act like I'm putting the effort in. So I got this I got this gym membership, but the idea of like having a trainer, which is an even stronger commitment, I just don't believe that I'm going to succeed. People will never be as honest as like everything that I just said out loud. But you will run into people who have that. They'll have this fear of deterrent, this fear of failure. If you start to recognize that, your best tool against that is, your confidence, and to display like the fact that like you are there to coach them. And it's like, look, I'm going to be on you, like you don't show up for your session, I'm going to call you. You show up, I'm going to ask you if you did your homework. I'm going to give you things to do on your own. I am your support system. My job is to construct a scenario that hopefully will not fail. I probably wouldn't say hopefully. Just say, I'm here to construct a system that will not fail. I want your exercise experience to be as close to autopilot as possible. All you have to do is get your body there and try, So those are really big ones. So what you want to do, and this is sort of the key sentence here, relentlessly create, relentlessly display, relentlessly educate your clients on the value that you are building into your sessions. If you do all of that, the sales will happen for you. Your gyms are going to teach you sales techniques. The management they're going to give you like sentences and key phrases to use and things like that. Every gym that you go to, that's totally going to happen. When it's like part of your training, they'll say like, hey, let me teach you how to use this. Let me tell you about the 24-hour fitness philosophy. They're going to train you up on stuff like that. You can build all that in, but honestly, guys, if you are building enough value into your sessions, being like, I'm the world's greatest trainer and I'm here to like build you an effective program, as long as you build that into like your sales pitch, we'll call it, people will want to sign up. You don't have to do any of that other stuff. This is where I've told you guys when we were meeting the other day, right? Fitness assessments, in my opinion, are the #1 selling tool that you have in your tool belt. And when I'm done doing an assessment with someone, people are chomping at the bit to sign up for training because they're like, that I learned so much in this, 30 minutes, more than I have in years of reading, Men's Health magazine or whatever. They desperately want to sign up for training at the end. So it's not through manipulation, right? When it comes to asking for a sale, you're not manipulating people ever. It's, professionalism and created value. That's what you are really selling. Again, kind of going back to this, and this is out of place. I wish this sentence would come up earlier because I forgot to mention it. But again, going back to that idea that like sales are manipulative, which they're not, or going back to the idea that like you're trying to get over on someone, which we're not. Remember that professionals who are not fanatical about selling are also not fanatical about increasing people's performance, health, self-esteem, or quality of life. Like, we're all here to do these things. We want to make people, perform better, feel better, mentally and physically. And we want to like improve their quality of life through like I like writing programs. I actually kind of nerd out on it. I enjoy, a well-crafted program for someone. And so like I'm fanatical about making that stuff. I'm excited to make it for people. If I'm not excited about sales as well, then I can't do any of this other stuff. And if I can't do any of this other stuff, then I must not be very excited about any of it. So until the sale is made, none of that's possible. Any questions on that before we just kind of wrap up our last asking concept on like the major selling portion of this? Then we're gonna get into the desired income. We're gonna pivot. Questions, comments, concerns?
I am the greatest, Muhammad Ali.
There you
That's
go.
how people remember all the wins, right? And they forget about the losses he's had. So yeah, I'm with
I know,
that,
right?
Brad.
I actually am very surprised. Every time I look at Muhammad Ali's stats, I'm always like, oh yeah, it is possible for him to lose. Yeah, like, of course he did. No boxer's undefeated.
Yeah, right. But that totally gets an override with what he puts out, and
Yeah.
so
Absolutely. I love that. That's a good
cool.
All right. So asking for the sale in the end, most sales guys are lost. Like the number one reason for a lost sale is because they're just simply not asked for. There is a weird activity, and when I say a weird activity, I kind of mean it. But there is like a thing when Gold's first opened. Gold's was like the first like commercial gym, right, down in Venice, and then it expanded like crazy. So Gold's had training memberships, that they were selling and stuff. And so they were trying all these like different techniques and trying to figure out like how to create like the basic personal training sales model. There's a history of it. If you read it, it actually is in a little book that you'll see at Sochi. How to sell personal training. Yeah, actually, hold on. I don't want these ads. How to sell personal training. It's a book. It's a little blue book. Yeah, selling personal training. That's what it is. You'll see these around Sochi. They might even throw them in your book every now and then, or in your bag every now and then. But this little book it's somewhat helpful. It's nothing. It's none of the piece of information you're not going to get in your normal training at whatever gym you work at. But what's interesting is it has a couple fun stories in it about like when they were first like trying to figure out how to do like personal training sales, and they did this activity where if there was ever a moment ever in conversation with someone where like someone would say, that sounds great, or like, oh, I love that idea, or yeah, just anything affirming the idea that they may want to sign up, they would do this like exercise activity. It was basically an activity the salespeople were trying where they would instantly go, okay, great, let's get that credit card. And they would, out of nowhere, no matter where they were in the conversation, they would instantly ask them for payment. And what's crazy is it was super effective. Now, I think that's kind of a weird thing to do. I would feel very awkward if it was like, let's get you signed up for your fitness assessment. Did you like that? And they were like, that was great. Awesome. Here, this 6 sessions a month, like instantly try to get their credit card. But it was like this weird activity that they tried, and it was shockingly effective. Like people, because what it did is it threw people, it was like an off-speed pitch. It was so sudden and so abrupt that the only like part that this person's brain could really act on was their immediate instinct that was, yes, I really do want to sign up for this, rather than all that stuff that starts to kind of creep in from the sides and being like, well, what if I don't have the time? What if I think it's hard to wake up in the morning? All those things that they consider. Like I said, like when I get invited to stuff, like my friends will be like, let's go do something. And I'll be like, yeah, maybe. I'll say maybe, even though I want to do it, because I liked having, I want to have my cake and I want to eat it too. Like I want to have it both ways. I want to go to it if I want to go to it, but I also want to be able to back out without feeling any social obligation, which is a weak stance. It should be taking a strong stance. So what that activity did, by just instantly asking for their payment immediately as early as possible. It became, and in the book they'll say it became like a weird competition between the sales teams. They were seeing who could ask for payment faster than anyone else. And so like they started asking for the sale really, really quickly. And it was shockingly effective because at the end of the day, people were only left with their instincts, and their instincts were, yeah, I want this. Because there's value already built into it. Of course I want it, of course I want to have like an expert tell me, give me state of the art training. Why wouldn't I want that, And so like, it was kind of this fun thing. I'm not saying you have to go that far, but I will say the number one reason sales are lost is because people don't ask for them. So get comfortable asking for the sale, pull the trigger. Once they're on, like they'll call it being on the hook. Once they're on the hook, like you're good to go, like move into like close that sale. Once they are excited, you don't have to keep building and building and building, because eventually what that just leads to is somebody coming up with an excuse of, oh, well, I'm not a very good morning riser. I stay up late sometimes. It's like, that's a terrible reason not to start exercising, right? So most potential sales are lost. The other ones are going to be, maybe there wasn't enough value built into the sale. If there isn't enough value to overcome the idea of price or commitment or effort, if you don't build enough value into your sessions, that's another reason why like sales are going to be lost. Maybe there's not enough like rapport. Maybe you didn't spend quite enough time like talking to this person, getting to know them, showing your personality and connecting with them. So you are trying to do that as much as possible, establish that rapport, learn about your clients, learn what makes them tick and what they're passionate about, and then like, let them see like what your personality is, how supportive you are, and that you're there to help. Sometimes it's because you didn't affirmatively ask for the sale. Again, this kind of goes back to not asking for the sale. But sometimes like you didn't ask for the sale like officially. I had a real problem with this. I would dance around the idea of like, let's get you signed up for training, rather than saying like, let's sell you, let's get you sold on this many sessions, let's get you to buy this many sessions. Let's get, these sessions on your account. It was always like, yeah, we can work together sometime Monday, like that's a stronger answer, right? So you got to affirmatively ask for things. And this is always going to be a possibility. The other, another reason why somebody might not make a sale, the potential client just legitimately doesn't have the ability to pay for it, legitimately doesn't have the time, legitimately cannot put in the effort, Of course, there are examples out there where people literally can't, purchase this stuff or pay for this stuff. Of course, that those people do exist. But it's less common than you would think. And a lot of people will say, oh, I can't really afford it, right? When I worked at BLR and WellFit, it was, let's see here, actually, let's look at Movara. Movara is basically what these are basically the same exact model. This is literally even the same website as WellFit. The owner of WellFit left and works here at Movara. And let's go to rates here. For a single bedroom, it is $2,600 per week. That is really expensive. For a queen, it's $2,500. That's about as cheap as it gets, right? $2,500 for sharing a room with another guest, right? You're in a double room. Pretty freaking pricey, right? But it's actually not. It's not as bad as that actually seems. I mean, like, how much is a? Oh God, I definitely don't want this on my. How much is a week-long cruise? Think about like think about like what a cruise is, right? Cruiseonthecheap.com. I mean, they're like 20. They're like, okay, yeah, somewhere between 1,200 and 2,000 per week, right? But that's a cruise where you're just kind of doing your own thing, and a lot of times like you got to buy more meals and pay for all that stuff. This is fully, all your meals are included, housekeeping is included, and you're getting trained 5 hours a day in exercise by professional trainers and going on hikes and getting fitness lessons, like, it's worth it. Like, there's a lot of value built into this resort and like this program here, right? And this is out in Utah, by the way. But this is basically, oh, that's cool. They put the schedule up now. So you'd wake up at 6:30, breakfast at 7, start hiking at 8. You get back at 11:30 to get a lecture, lunch at 12:30. You get a cooking demo at 1:15, and then boom, exercise class, exercise class, exercise class, dinner, recover. And like all the spa treatments are open and you can go get, massages and stuff. So that's a pretty inclusive program for $2,600 a month. So a lot of times, like, people will be like, how can you expect people to pay $2,600 a month? And like, I would flip that question around immediately and say, how can you expect someone to pay for a heart attack? Like $2,600 a week is way cheaper than the medical bills, to pay for insulin for the rest of your life, So, I mean, value, right? Again, it all comes down to that. Let's pivot again. Like I said, this is a very pivoty day. There's a lot of separate topics here today. And now we're going to talk about like how to determine like your session prices and things like that. We're going to talk about like, if you go into training for yourself, how do you determine how much you want to charge per session? Or if you are working in a gym where the session prices are already made, let's figure out how many hours per week you need to work in order to make your desired income goals. So I'm going to ask each of you individually. Irene, how do you think you determine your training prices? How do you determine your training prices?
Your skills, experience, and certifications with what you have behind you.
Okay.
I mean, well, not behind you, but with the certifications that you've been certified with.
Yeah. So you're gonna set your prices by determining like your own perception of your own value. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I also see it as like being the actual client. I would want somebody with experience. You know what I mean? So it's kind of there's like a gray area where I'm kind of cut in between like what I would want and how I would. But
Sure.
you're asking how I would, yeah.
Yeah, how if you had to pick your prices, like how would you pick them?
How would I, the amount and basing it on.
Like, are you going to charge $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $40 an hour? How are you going to choose?
How am I going to choose? Yeah, it would be based on the price with the knowledge and the experience. And am I totally not answering your question?
No, I think you are. You are. Yeah, you're good. No, I've got what I wanted. Yeah, you're good. I think that's good. All right. Charlie, what do you think? How would you come up with your prices?
I would actually go the same route as Irene, but also depending, let's say for like my path, I would actually, I remember I mentioned it too. I want to do like a HIIT training kind of outside workout. So also, I think I am going to invest, and I have invested in my own equipment. The type of equipment I invested in and I have to offer, because obviously, I'm putting it up for the client.
Yeah.
So I would also actually include that.
I love it. I think both those are actually really strong answers. I will warn you, NASM is going to have a different answer. And it is the cockiest but strongest answer available. NASM's textbook answer to the question, how do you determine your training prices, is this: how much money do you want to earn per year? So basically, NASM wants you to go backwards, and which I think is great, by the way. This is a very entrepreneurial way of thinking. So Irene, Charlie, you guys were thinking, I'm going to charge this much because this is what I think I'm worth. And then, afterwards you would determine how much you need to work in order to make like what you want in your desired income. NASM wants you to flip that around. NASM wants you to go, how much do I want to earn per year? and then you divide that down until you figure out how much it is per session. So I'm going to do this really fast. But let's say you want to make $100,000 per year, right? Right, that's how much you want to earn per year. We know that there's 52 weeks in a year, but let's just say you assume you want to take 2 weeks off for vacation. So we'll say 50 weeks per year. So we take 100,000, we divide it by 50. That's $2,000 per week is how much you need to make. Then we figure out how many hours per week you want to work. Let's say that's, in the training world, if you're working 40 hours per week, that's pretty freaking good. Most people can't really pull that off. So let's say you're getting 25 training hours per week. So we divide that by 25. That means you need to charge $80 per session. If you can get 25 sessions per week at $80 a session, you'll be a six-figure earner. So it's a different answer. And I think, for the record, on a personal opinion, I think both you guys are nailing it. I think you're both considering really good things. But this is like NASM is trying to like pave the way for you to think bigger. They're like, no. We want you to think much bigger than that. We want you to think in the long term, how can you get, as many sessions as possible, to earn like this high amount of like income, right? So they flip it around. You take your desired income and then you pare it down, right? Does that make sense, guys?
Oh, totally. And I do like, wow, that's like a whole different aspect of things. I
Totally
like
different
it.
mentality. Yeah. It's also like, I was just talking about this the other night. I was talking about how like, we had a really fun conversation. My friends and I, we were talking about the idea of like inherited, what is it? What would we freaking say? Belief in poverty or something like that. This idea that like you come from like a poor background, and so like you just stay in that poor background your whole life. And it's like, well, there are millionaires out there, and then there's me. And it's like, no. And it's like the idea that you want to learn how to like retool that thinking. That is like, a lot of people think that like you have to work in order to like pay your living, but everyone's goal really should be to pay your living and not have to work. And if you can make your money work for you, you can do that. And that's the idea of like passive income and stuff. And obviously that's a long conversation that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but you can just see it's like a different mentality, right? There's a different mentality associated with that. Like the goal should not be to be, to work 1 million hours in order to make income. The goal should be to work as few hours as possible and make your income, So 10 steps to success. We're going to break this down by income right here. So developing a clientele, right, developing your client base depends largely on the degree of how well you are able to work the floor and schedule sales, schedule fitness assessments, sales appointments, and things like that. So NASM has a sort of a 10-step plan here. I will say they break this 10 steps down like a little bit too much. If you ask me, like they're going to break it down literally per hour, which I don't know. I think it goes a little bit too far. But hey, it's great. It's great advice. So first thing you need to do is set up your desired annual income. That should always be your first question that you ask yourself. So what is your desired annual income? Maybe, be realistic about it. Maybe, you're not going to be a six-figure earner in your first year of personal training. I don't know anybody who's ever been able to do that. But if you're, if you say like, okay, well, I want to earn, 50,000 a year in my first, like 12 months, that may be doable, right? Or maybe you're working like a second job and you don't want to like transfer directly into personal training right away. So you're like, I want to increase my income. I've already making some income here. I want to increase it by 20,000 a year, So the first thing you need to do is ask yourself, what is your desired annual income, right? That's the desirable over 12 months. So once you ask yourself that, then you need to divide that into how much you want to earn per week. So that's question 2. How much money do you need to be earned per week in order to achieve that goal? So divide your annual income by 50 in order to figure out like what it is. Now, again, there's 52 weeks in a year, but we just assume that you're going to take a 2-week vacation at some point, right? Which everyone should want to do. I will tell you, this is something that is unhealthy about me. I don't take vacations enough. I find it very difficult to like stop working because I think I have a mentality that's built around valuing being a hard worker, and it's actually not a very good mentality for if you want to have a good work-life balance. So let's say here, desired income is 60,000, right? So we take 60,000 and we divide that by 50. That means you want to earn somewhere between 1,200 per week. So now to earn the weekly goal, how many sessions do you need to perform per week in order to meet that goal? So you're going to take your weekly goal of 1,200 and you're going to divide it by the amount earned per session. Now here, this is where your prices are already determined for you. So if you're working in a gym and let's say you're working at Equinox, I think it's somewhere around 42 an hour, right? So if you want to earn 60,000 a year at working at Equinox, you would take that 1,200 per week and divide it by 42. So 1,200 divided by 42, that means you need to work about 29 sessions per week. So that's one way to do it. Now, like I said, you could totally do it the other way to determine your prices, right? You would take 1,200 per week and ask yourself, how many hours a week do I want to work? Maybe you only want to work part-time. You want to work 20 hours per week. Okay, cool. Divide that by 20. You can charge $60 per hour. Boom, there you go. So to earn your weekly goal, how many sessions need to be performed? 1,200 divided by 4. In this case, we picked 42 because that was a set number. 29 sessions per week. Okay, that is all the income stuff. Now we need to figure out how many people you need to contact. This is where we get into what is called prospecting. Prospecting is basically where you are making assumptions and you are determining how many humans you need to talk to in order to get to this number, right? So this is where we, again, sort of reverse it. You know, a lot of people like, you know, they figure out how many people they're talking to and then they figure out how much they earn. And it's like, I talked to this many people and I got this many sessions, which means I can earn this much. And then they're happy with it. And it's like, no, you want to have goals, right? So we want to flip it back around. So this is where you need to figure out what is called your closing percentage. That's step 4. Your closing percentage, we're going to take a pivot away from the money part of this here. And we're just going to talk about how often you actually make any sale at all. That's your closing percentage. And so it's determined by the total number of, something just flipped my nose and it's killing me. It is determined by the total number of people helped on the floor compared with how many of them you got to purchase training packages. So you want to kind of keep track of your stats here. Let's say you talked to 20 people and 3 of them signed up for personal training, right? So of that, by the way, that would be incredible. That's actually a really good number. But if you talk to 20 people on the floor and, you know, 10 of them were like not interested, they didn't even want to have a conversation with you. And then 10 of them did fitness assessments, and then 3 of those fitness assessments signed up for personal training, right? That would mean that you would take the number 3 and you would divide it by 20. So you sort of do this in reverse. You're like, I got 3 new clients, but I talked to 20 clients, right? That's going to be a 15% closing rate, right? 0.15, you move the decimal, times it by 100, 15%, right? So that is your closing rate. And that's a really good closing percentage, right? All right, so now we know your closing percentage is, right? And we know what your desired annual income is, and we know how many sessions you want to get per week. So because we know you need 29 sessions per week, and we know you have a 15% closing rate, we can use both of those things to determine how many human beings you need to talk to in this world about personal training. So you kind of need to pivot again and say, in what time frame will you give yourself to get these new clients? Maybe you've got 3 months worth of savings, you know, to kind of get you by over the next few months. And so now you need to give yourself a set end goal to get up to 29 sessions per week. And you're like, all right, I've got 3 months to build my client base to 29 sessions per week, right? So you're going to set a goal that has a specific end date in mind for when you want to get those potential clients. So that's your step 5. whatever you do here, guys, make sure that you do not give yourself too short of a time. This is going to be based on you, but do not give yourself too short of a time frame. That will only lead to frustrations. But also don't set your timeline way too far in the future. If you set it way too far in the future, there's no sense of urgency. And then you're gonna be like, yeah, it's fine. And then all of a sudden your deadline shows up and you're like, wait, what? So you don't want to do either of those things. You kind of want to play around with it and figure out, like, you know, how you can get exactly to where you need to get to. Step 6, how many potential people need to be interacted with in order to, you know, in that time frame. So you're going to take the desired number of new clients, which in this case we said was 29, and you're going to divide that by your closing percentage, right? So 29 sessions per week divided by 15%. So 29, then we're going to go times 0.15. That's totally not how we're doing that, actually. What am I talking about? Literally have it written down here. Can't remember how to do math. 29 divided by 0.15. Good Lord. That means that you need to talk to 193 people, which sounds like a lot. But remember, you've got 3. Let's say you gave yourself a 3-month time frame to do this. That's honestly probably too far. Let's say it's 2 months. Wait, how many did I say? Didn't I have one on here? No? Okay. So you gave yourself, oh wait, that's right. I literally did skip step 7 and 8 because it gets a little bit too specific in this sort of process. Honestly, this is where I normally stop, right? Where, like, I need to talk to 193 people, and on average, in order to, like, get this closing percentage. But NASM's going to have you take this way, way further. So we're going to see step 7 here. So step 7, which I didn't actually include in your notes, break that number of members down into an overall weekly increment in order to make that more manageable. So obviously 193 people, you're not going to speak to that in a day. You know, you're not going to meet 193 new folks in a day. But let's say you've got, you know, X number of weeks to get this done. You take 193, and we said, well, let's say it's 2 months, right? 193, that's 8 weeks. So we divide that by 8. That means you need to talk to 24 people a week. Not too bad, right? Now you need to break that down by days. Let's say you're working 5 days per week. So we take 24 and we divide that by 5, which means you talk to about we need to talk about 5 people a day. If you talk to 5 people a day, every day you go into work, that should prospect you within the next 8 weeks based on your closing percentage. You should build up your client base enough. That's why 15% closing rate is actually really, really good. And then look at this. This is like how many people need to be contacted each hour. This is where I was like, no, it's too specific. 5 people per day. Let's say you're working a 5-hour shift, right? 5 divided by 5, you need to talk to 1 person an hour. Not too bad, right? Working the floor, 1 person an hour, that's pretty manageable for anybody. You know, and obviously what's going to happen is, and this is one thing that this whole formula here totally does not address, by the way. Or if it does address it, it's in the realm of, like, you'll hear salespeople say this is like they work all day, or they just stay there all day to be successful at sales. And it's like, we don't want to do that. But I will say this gets harder the more clients you have, because eventually your schedule starts filling up. You have a hard time getting people in for certain assessments. Like, it becomes really difficult for you to find a place to get your sessions, you know? It's fine. It becomes hard for you. You know, once you're doing 28 sessions a week, you've only got 1 hour to work the floor. So you're only talking to 1 person, you know, a day. You know, it becomes hard eventually to actually kind of do this. And remember, this is like if you had and I will say one thing, this is 29 sessions per week, right? What about all the people who are signing up for 2 or 3 sessions per week? You know, this would be, this is to get 29 new clients. So even that is like more than it needs to be. So but you can see here, they're going to break it down by hour, and way too specific for my tastes. So for each contact in that hour, make sure that you are providing that assistance, right? Even if they don't necessarily develop into sales, at least it is, you are that person at the gym who is so freaking valuable, and is offering advice to everyone. You start to build a reputation. Again, even if you don't necessarily close every single sale, people are seeing you as this optimistic, positive person who's there to help everyone. It's the type of reputation you want to have. So once you've done that, and this is step 9, this is a really important one. You're going to try as often as possible to ask each member for their contact information. Always try to make sure that you've got enough rapport built first, right? Make sure that you have enough good rapport built with them. You're asking for a phone number / email. Obviously, if you're a total stranger, no one's going to want to give that to you. But offer to develop them a couple exercises, give them that fitness assessment, give them those pieces of advice, get their contact info so that you can reach out to them and follow up with them as well. So ask each member for their contact information, offer assistance at a later date. Be like, hey, maybe I can get your contact info, and I'm going to email you with my schedule, and we're going to see what time you and I can maybe meet together to set something up, and then contact them and arrange that exercise program. And then, like I said, lastly, follow up. Within 24 hours, follow up with your client, phone, email, whatever. Schedule that and follow up with them as much as you can. I think 24 to 48 hours is pretty good, but 24 is definitely the number. So then, give it a day at the end of your set. This is what I used to do at the end of every shift when I was in a big, a lot of times once you're established, you don't have to do as much of this. But whenever I was in sales mode, January every year, I would be done with my shift. I would leave the gym. I'd usually print stuff out at the gym. I'd print out all the phone numbers because I kind of like having an actual piece of paper. I mean, a lot of stuff is just digital and you just call them. It's on the computer, but I like having physical lists. I like crossing stuff off paper. So I would often go print stuff off and be boom, boom, boom. And I'd just make some of those calls once I got home, which meant that, my work life was definitely invading my home life. That is true. But I could have stayed at the gym. I just, that's how I like to do it. And then I would schedule that appointment in my little appointment book. Then I would put that appointment book into my phone. And then next time I went to work, I would update my schedule in the actual computer, which worked really well. I will say the one problem with doing it the way I did and not doing it in the gym, huge problem with that is your managers will often, or the sales team will often book sessions onto your schedule. And sometimes they don't tell you, which is bull crap. And they should always, always, always call you first. But sometimes people just don't do that. And then that leads to you reaming them out and just being like, hey, it's my schedule. Don't, and then, then suddenly you're screwing up your relationships. So you don't want to do that either. But always, always, always get that contact info and follow up within 24 hours. Now, NASM again is going a little far here. They're saying, write them a thank you card. I don't know about that. I've never done that once. But definitely give them a phone call. Make sure that you thank them for their time. Try to schedule them for another business. And remember, you've got this contact info. So in 3 to 4 weeks, if you want to follow up again, and call them and be like, hey, how was that? We set you up for that fitness assessment. I gave you a couple exercises to perform. How's your gym journey been going? Maybe it turns out they didn't sign up for training the first time, but then, the next time you call, they're like, oh, you know what? I've actually been pretty frustrated for the last 30 days. Or, what I like to do is I like to build someone an actual workout and then give it to them and be like, here you go. This is a great, 4-week routine, and then follow up with them 4 weeks later. And a lot of times people are like, yeah, I was a little confused on how to do this, 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 and this. And it's like, well, let's get together. And then, I don't write programs for people for free. But I would definitely be like, well, maybe you can try retooling this and this and this. Little piece of information and see if they're interested in signing up for training. It always just is another way to get that conversation going. Now, within that 24-hour follow-up, the most important thing that you can do, if they want to sign up for an appointment, this is huge, and that's why I put it in freaking bold. I should put it in red and underline it and make it, 36 font. Just this, I can't make, this is so important. It cannot be more important. But once they agree to come in for a fitness assessment or a training session or whatever, schedule that appointment. Immediately, as quickly as possible, get it on the books. Do not, this is the biggest mistake I see people make, other than not asking for the sale, but this really is totally the same thing as not asking for the sale. Biggest mistake I see people make is like, they'll go, so let's get you signed up for a fitness assessment. And they're like, great, yeah, I'd love to. I'm really excited to do a fitness assessment. And you're like, okay, cool, I'll call you. What? Ugh, gross. No. Like, all that means is that they're gonna like come up with some reason to not do that fitness assessment. So be like, hey, let's talk about like a slightly better but still worse, still bad version. What if we said, hey, let's get you signed up for a fitness assessment? They're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm excited to sign up for a fitness assessment. Okay, let's do sometime next week. Better, still gross, terrible response, right? Next week is too vague. Let's say Monday at 3, Tuesday at 6, Friday at 9, whatever, right? Put it on the books, right? I don't know who in this call is single, but like if you had someone who wants to go on a date with you, you're not gonna go, yeah, I'll have my people call your people. What? No, we're gonna go out to dinner Friday. Put it on the books. That is so freaking important. All right, let me undo all this crazy formatting. So schedule that appointment as quick as you can. Now, obviously, people are going to say no. I gave us a 15% closing ratio earlier. That is astronomically high. Most of the time, your closing percentage will be around 10, maybe even a little bit lower. 9 out of 10 people are going to say no, but even with a 10% closing ratio, right? We go all the way back up here. We know we need 1,200 a week. We're making 4,200 a session. That means we need 29 sessions per week. 29 divided by 0.1. You can talk to 200, you can talk to about 300 people. 300 people, it's not that hard to talk to over the course of several weeks, So that is the key to understanding, this situation is that like, no matter how low your closing, if you're a bad salesperson and your closing percentage is 3%, you can still get to where you're going because maybe you're a great trainer. It's maybe going to take you a little bit longer to establish your client base, but once your client base is established, if you're a great trainer, they're going to keep signing up. And that's what's really great about this. All of this applies really strongly to when you're starting out, and you're going to notice it totally shatters and breaks apart the minute your schedule is full. Because it becomes really hard to like work the floor and you just have the same clients. I was notorious for this. I actually, I had to have like a kind of a prickly conversation when I worked at Stafford Hills, actually, because those 1-hour tours were really effective for getting clients, and I was sending up new people like crazy. And at one point, like I stopped getting commissions because I just had a bunch of like re-ups that were like totally regular, because I would sell like really large packages because they were really good deals. And a lot of times when I'm talking to someone, I spend a lot of time talking about the future. That's something that like I think is just part of my personality. And so a lot of times I spend a lot of my time forecasting, in conversation with my clients about like in 6 months we're gonna do this, in 3 months we're gonna do this, and I spend a lot of time like thinking about the long term. And so generally when people sign up for memberships, they often sign up for big memberships, which my boss like approached me and was like, hey, like you're not doing very well hitting your commission bonuses. And I was like, well, that's because I got a massive commission bonus last month where I sold all of my training. And I was like, look at how many, I was like, you got to go into the computer and look at my clients and how many sessions they have left. I can't sign them up for more training if they already have training. And he was like, well, maybe next time you can sell them like the smaller packages, and that'll get you, what you want to do is you want to get like a commission bonus regularly. And I was like, no, like, that's more work for me. And he was like, but you'll make a bigger paycheck. And I was like, yeah, no. And I was really just like, not into the idea, because it was more work and I was making a comfortable living already. So I was like, I'm not doing more work for the sake of getting a slightly larger bonus every now and then. To each their own. You want to do that? Go for it. It's great. I don't like, I will always prefer like a regular, for sure schedule over like a gamble any day of the week. But that's just me. So if your client says yes, immediately process that payment. Like I said, ask for the sale as quickly as you can. Schedule their first appointment as soon as possible. Again, schedule the freaking appointment. Do not, like, they sign up for training, be like, all right, well, I'll call you about when my schedule's open. Know your freaking schedule so you can be like Tuesday at 5. Send them a thank you card if you want to. Again, I've never done that. Always call to confirm their first appointment 24 hours ahead of time. Most gyms are going to do this for you. Most gyms have either text messages or emails built into the system, and it will email them or text them automatically. When I was doing a lot of personal training, you guys can get apps on your phone that are like schedule the text for later apps. I used to love those. I would just sit down like at the end of the week and be like, I would go through all my appointments and schedule like regular ones. Because I'm all about like getting people like, you know, Irene, you're on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. Charlie, you're on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5. You know, like I like having the same time slot, the same schedule as often as possible. So you can get these like scheduling text apps that will allow you to be like, hey, this is a reminder that your appointment's in 24 hours. And I wouldn't want to send those texts out every freaking session. That would be like impossible. So what I would do is I would get the schedule text app and then, you know, set them up ahead of time. And then my phone would send out these texts while it's sitting in my pocket, you know, doing its own thing. I don't know what they're all called. I don't know the difference between like Apple and you know, Google and stuff, but just literally go to your app store and just look for schedule a text. Or schedule a text for later. If you search that, you know, there'll be a million of them out there. And if your client says no, when you try to make that sale, remain professional, remain helpful, thank them for participating in the fitness assessment. Make sure you have their contact info so that you can reach out to them in a few weeks for a follow-up to see if maybe they're interested. And again, it says send a thank you card. Like I said, I've never once done that. But in 14 days, you know, 2 to 4 weeks, reach out to them and just see like, has their situation changed? You know, are they interested in things like that? And yeah, keep that contact info. It's very helpful. What I used to do, like I said, I like having stuff on paper, and I would just update it every now and then and like move my little check marks over. But I would have like a sheet of paper, you know, it was like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that was pinned to my bedroom wall. And it was like people that I was like following up with, and I was like, I would put check marks on. And when I got to 3 check marks, I was like, all right. And then I would just cross that name out and be like, you know, that was 3 months. If they're not going to sign up after 3 follow-up calls, you know, they're not going to sign up at all. So that is kind of everything about like the prospecting part of it. We'll talk about like, you know, actually like running a sales simulation tomorrow, like what things to say, how to overcome objections. You know, when somebody says like, I can't because of the time, I can't because of the money, I can't because, you know, I don't have the credit card in my relationship. You know, we're going to look at like those different versions and how to sort of overcome those. Sort of a 4-step process there as well. With it, tomorrow is the actual like sales technique. Today is really much more about prospecting more than anything. But do you guys have any questions? How you feeling today, guys?
I love the approach, that whole refreshing approach with NASM, with the desired annual income and just zooming in and, you know, within realistic goals.
Yeah, they're great. I think they take it almost a little too far, but I mean, it works. You know, I think it's excellent. Um,
Yeah.
they really get super deep, like by hour. You know, which is great when you're first starting out. I mean, you got to do stuff like that. You know, you need to figure out, like, especially because like your boss is probably going to give you a little pressure because they're constantly looking at like budget sheets and stuff, and they're like, hey, I don't want to give you any floor hours. And you know, you're gonna go to them and be like, look, my closing percentage is like 10%. Give me this many floor hours and I will fill up my
Mm.
schedule and I won't need any more. You know? So
Yeah,
don't
and
negotiate.
it's like the same concept with training because you have like to lower my cholesterol. This is why I'm here with you. And then
Right?
you're designing a program in order to reach that goal, taking those baby steps to get to that goal. And it's like the same concept with the money. And I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool.
That's
Yeah,
not
like
bad, right?
think,
No, I mean,
seeing the
like,
big picture, zooming in with colors and details.
right? Yeah. I love those. What do they call it? Is it called is it a pictograph? Is that what it is? Where you have like the picture and then it's made up of a whole bunch of little tiny other pictures. That's not a pictograph.
Yeah, and also, this reminds me, like how just to touch on it real quick, when you just say like you want more money and you find a dime on the ground, you have more money. But if you don't have a goal and you set it, it's like
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's so wishy-washy.
I
I
like that.
like it.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool. Thanks.
You got to be specific, right? Yeah. Charlie, you have any questions?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good, bro.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you tomorrow for our final lecture in this class, and then final on Thursday. And then we start, Charlie, program design, your first one. Those are our most fun classes.
Do we have homework today, right? Tonight, right, bro?
Oh, yes. And yeah, thank you. Homework 3 is going to go out today. Technically, it's homework 2, right? The cover letter and the resume are homework 2 officially. But yes, the third graded thing is going out today. It'll be 15 questions. There are going to be a couple questions. Actually, I'm going to give you a little breakdown here. There's a couple questions in this homework that sometimes get a little complicated. I'd say that there's some of our weirdest questions. So I'm just going to pull this up here. So there are these big story questions. So Fabrice here. So it's about the 4 P's of marketing, right? So Fabrice's new fitness training center attracts many clients from the city. He divides his clients into different rate slabs and provides them with unique training schedules that would enable his clients to benefit from the same way that his other clients would. If they find the pay rates affordable and the length of the program time efficient. He uses social media to communicate with his clients regularly, which of the following 4 P's has enabled him to attract more consumers to his facility. So you're trying to figure out, is he, what's allowed him to attract more consumers? The place, the product, the price, or the promotion? Long freaking question. You need to eliminate information that doesn't matter, right? Attracts many clients in the city. That doesn't matter. He divides his clients into rate slabs and provides them with a unique training schedule that will enable him to benefit as his other clients would. So that enabling stuff doesn't matter. Unique training schedule. So we'll delete this and take it down to rate slabs. His clients find the pay rates affordable and the length of time efficient. He uses social media to effectively communicate with his clients regularly. So when people see that, right, a lot of times they're like, oh, he's promoting with social media. But notice how it says social media with his clients. Those are existing clients, not new clients. So how is he attracting new clients? That's going to be price stuff. So I will say these questions are some of the weirdest questions. Ooh, hold on. Like some of the weirdest questions that you've got in regards to like homeworks and stuff. They'll take a little bit of thinking on, but what I recommend is if you do get a question, if you miss a question, guys, just get on Canvas, practice that question over and over again. You guys can take the homeworks. Every time you get them right, it raises your percentage. So the more practice, the better.
Brad, am I and Robert being kicked out after this?
Not on Friday. No. But at the end of the mod. At the end
Oh,
of the mod.
what? Didn't you say we're having finals on Thursday? So that's the end of the month.
It's the end of this class, so it'll be the end of.
Oh, okay. Yay!
Yeah, we got program design. We got program design sports coming up on Friday.
Okay, cool. I was like getting a little nervous there. I'm like, no, I don't want to leave yet.
No.
Okay. All right. See you tomorrow, Brad. Thank you.
All right. See you tomorrow, guys.
Good.